I wasn't going to make this video because nothing was going to happen, and then something happened, so now I'm making the video. You might have heard over the weekend that Anthropic settled in the BLASTS v. Anthropic case. And as I was trying to point out to people, no. They had a settlement table. They had a settlement agreement. They had documents showing what they were both willing to settle for. Settlement doesn't go through until the judge signs off on it, and that's going to be Monday, which was yesterday as I record this. Now, it is true that usually these things are rubber stamped, especially in civil cases, but there are cases where a judge is going to go, no, I don't care if both of you agree to this, I'm not agreeing to it. Judges are a lot less likely to accept a settlement if they think it's dodging a critical question of law that needs to be answered. And as we've talked about, there are some critical questions of law right here that need to be answered, especially since we've got another court case, Cadre v. Meta, that completely contradicts it. Judges also have to consider the broader public interest, and if there are a lot of concerns just beyond the parties in the case, that can cause a judge to reject a settlement. And if there's any kind of fraud or collusion, like they're doing this just so the lawyers can make each other rich or something like that. But in particular, class actions, those settlements get rejected a lot more often than you might think. In fact, one of the cases we talked about, the Authors Guild v. Google Books, they had originally settled that and the judge rejected it. The judge was like, nah, we need to figure this out. So one reason might be if the payout is incredibly low compared to the alleged harm. And as we'll see, what they're talking about is the figure they're giving is $1.5 billion, which is a lot for Anthropic, but nowhere close to the $1 trillion they were facing. Also, if the lawyers are, because I've talked about this before, it's really the lawyers that make out with the class action. And I think everyone knows that, but judges are like, if the lawyers are taking too big of a cut, they'll reject it. But mainly it's just about being fair to the class members, especially since at this point we haven't really defined the class. We've got, we promise we'll figure it out. As I mentioned before, it's up to Anthropic to figure it out, which is another whole wrinkle to the case. But in figuring out how much each class member is supposed to get, especially since, again, as I pointed out, the class members aren't all the same here. So there are issues and we'll get into them, but let's look at the settlement first. I'm not going to go over this in detail, but I do want to hit a few highlights so we get an idea of what we're talking about here. I don't want to go into the terms, he doth accept the terms, etc., because those are probably going to change, or maybe the whole settlement will fall under, who knows. But if we are here on page 12 of the first PDF file that I have linked to, I am giving you the page numbers in the PDF file. Just type in 12 and you'll get there, even though this is actually page 3 of the settlement document. Anthropic will pay at least $1.5 billion into a non-reversionary settlement fund, which will be distributed to class members on a uniform per-week basis. So the screeching online you're hearing is, only 1.5. They're only getting away with 1.5 billion. No, that's just a minimum. It says at least. Could be more. And moreover, the settlement fund will accrue interest to the benefit of the class during the pendency of any appeals. I thought that was interesting, because usually when you have a settlement, you can't appeal it. You've settled it and that's done. But like I've said before, there are appeals that are ongoing. There's that interlocutory appeal up to the circuit court that's on pause along with the regular court case while all this is going on. So apparently this is not going to put the kibosh on any appeals. And then they emphasize what I just told you. This is the minimum size of the settlement fund. The parties are still working to finalize the full works list. If the works list ultimately exceeds 500,000 works, and that is way pared down from the libraries they were looking at, then Anthropic will pay an additional $3,000 per work that Anthropic adds to the work list above 500,000 works. So it could still end up being a lot more. Members of the class will release claims for works on the works list that arise from defendants' alleged past torrenting, including uploading and seeding, scanning, retention, and use of works, including training, research, development, and production of AI models and associated products and services. Now that's just the past use. This doesn't give them like a free pass to do it forever. And it does not extend to any claims for future reproduction, distribution, and/or creation of derivative works. The release does not pertain to output claims at all, whether past or future, and the settlement only releases claims for works on the works list. So if anything isn't on the works list, then the author can still sue them separately for this. And that leaves a big open-ended question about this. And then Anthropic agrees to delete it. The settlement requires Anthropic to destroy the original files of the works it obtained from LibGen or PLIME and any copies that originate from the torrented downloaded copies, subject to any preservation obligations for litigation or other court orders. But it doesn't sound like they have to delete the curated, munged up ones, the ones they've actually prepared to feed into the AI for training purposes. It's just the original downloads. Alright, so yeah, there's a million other things in this, but that's the gist of it. So, they filed that on Saturday. Judge made a filing on Sunday, the day before the hearing. And apparently, he's not happy. He says, but the district judge is disappointed that counsel have left important questions to be answered in the future. You and me both, Alsup. You and me both. Because even if Anthropic thinks this is a deal they can live with, what does it mean for the industry as a whole? So now there are a whole lot of points that have to be made and then challenged by Anthropic, then approved by the court, all by October 10. That's our new date. Those critical choices will need to be confirmed well before October 10 and before preliminary approval can be granted. So that was on Sunday. The hearing was on Monday. And these aren't televised, these aren't live streamed, so we didn't get to see what was going on. All we can do is take the word of the reporters who were there, which again, grains of salt, because we've heard them misreport these things so many times. So grains of salt on standby, but we are going to look at this one report, and this was the only one I found that was anything other than a milquetoast. Oh, Anthropic's being forced to settle. Yay, AI is going down, blah, 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 blah. This is the only one I found it on. KSTP Channel 5 in Minneapolis, which is nowhere near where the trial's taking place, but it says the Associated Press. So I assume this is on a newswire, but I couldn't find it anywhere else, so KSTP it is. And they write, a federal judge on Monday skewered a $1.5 billion settlement. Oh, Alsup apparently was not any happier. He was not in any better mood the next day. Between AI company Anthropic and authors who allege nearly 500,000 books have been illegally pirated to train chatbots, raising the specter that the case could still end up going to trial. Oh my God, to have a video of this to know. They say after spending nearly an hour mostly lambasting a settlement that he believes is full of pitfalls. I would love to hear that. I would love to know what all his problems are. Judge Alsup scheduled another hearing in San Francisco on September 25 to review whether his concerns have been addressed. So apparently we got to come in on the 25th and figure all that out before we can have the final one on October 10th. And check out this quote from the judge. We'll see if I can hold my nose and approve it. If they can get it just up to the point where he can stand to be in the same room with the settlement. The proposed settlement will pay authors and publishers about $3,000 for each of the books covered by the agreement. Justin Nelson, attorney for the authors, told Alsup that about 465,000 books are on the list of works pirated by Anthropic. The judge said that he needed more ironclad assurances that that number won't swell to ensure the company doesn't get blindsided by more lawsuits coming out of the woodwork. Yeah, they settled this one just for 1 million others to come in. Hey, we're authors of 2 million other works and we're suing you in all these districts all over the country. That would not be good. This has been bad enough lawfare as it is. That would make it even worse. So yeah, the judge has been pushed to his limit. The judge also raised worries about 2 big groups connected to the case. Oh my God, did I tell you this, people, or did I tell you? What did I say all those weeks ago? What was I pointing out? They're trying to paint it like, oh, it's these poor little individual authors on this big, bad Anthropic. Anthropic is this huge, big tech company, it's a big corporation. We're just standing up for the little guy. And it's the exact opposite. I went over earlier, so I won't go over it again, just how small Anthropic is and how, like, they go, oh, like billions of dollars, how that doesn't really mean anything. But who did I tell you was connected to the case? Well, this is a conspiracy theory. It's just authors. It's just individual authors. They just want for their works. It's just a conspiracy theory. Well, nope. Here the judge is saying two big groups connected to the case. The Authors Guild and the Association of Publishers. Did I tell you, folks, or did I tell you? Yeah, that's a conspiracy theory. I'll take it up with the judge. Working behind the scenes in ways that could pressure some authors to accept the settlement without fully understanding it. Like I said, the actual authors just get ground underfoot. $1.5 billion might sound like a lot. $3,000 per work might sound like a lot. Authors aren't going to see that. Unless you're one of the big named plaintiffs, like Kirk Wallace Johnson. Before the hearing, Johnson, author of The Feather Thief and other books, described the settlement as the beginning of a fight on behalf of humans that don't believe we have to sacrifice everything on the altar of AI. How many videos have I made about the absolute hysterics about this case? Is this where they're coming from? Are they having the authors write those? I gotta tell you, if this is in any way typical of the way Johnson writes his books, I don't want to read any of them. Oh, my stars and garters. Alsup made it clear, though, that he was leery about the settlement and warned he may decide to let the case go to trial. And he said, I have an uneasy feeling about all the hangers-on in the shadows. Like I tell you, for all his faults, Judge Alsup is not one you can pull the wool over his eyes very easily. Remember, this is the Oracle v. Google judge. This is the judge who taught himself how to code so he could understand that case. So I don't know, man. We'll have to see how it goes from here. And I wish I had better information for you. I wish I had video of it that I could go through and react to. I wish I had a transcript that I could look at. Us mere mortals don't get the transcript. You have to be on Pacer or Recap to be able to get that. You have to pay for them, which I would, except they won't let me on. They're supposed to. And I keep applying, and they keep saying, well, we will send you written documentation within 7 to 10 business days. Never got it. Made several attempts over the last couple of years, really, about not just these cases, but about others. Can't even get them to send me the documentation. Yep. I guess you just gotta do what you gotta do. But I'll keep doing it for as long as I can, and for as long as you continue watching. So please, by all means, comments for the comment god, shares for the share throne. Like, subscribe, and the bell, and get this information out there. Because all the stuff you're seeing on the socials is misinformation. I've just shown you definitively, at least as definitively as I can, what's really been going on. So don't believe the propaganda. We pretty much have proof now that there's some sort of back channel. One of my longtime viewers thinks that there must be like this big anti-AI Discord that they're all on, and then they say, oh, here's this guy, go after this guy, make this talking point, make that talking point, and then they send the mob. That would explain it. That would explain everything. That's what we have to counter. So you can do this by amplifying any of the voices you can. And of course, you can keep me giving you the information so that you can do that by going to donate.bogosity.tv, any amount, pretty much any way you want to, and also by becoming a regular supporter as well. Anything and everything you can do will help, because this is the future we're talking about, and the future is being shaped by what people say and do right here and now. Which means, as always, but in particular right now, please stay strong and be free.